All right. Well, good morning, everybody, depending on where you are in the United States. It's morning for me. I'm on the West Coast. So good morning, good afternoon. I think worst case, people are in the afternoon. Very excited to have all of you join us today. We're very optimistic that you guys are going to get a lot out of this particular webcast. We've got really two very intelligence, obviously intelligent, but very domain expert based gentlemen on this call today or this webinar today that we're going to talk about some great stuff. So without further ado, let me introduce myself. My name is Sunny Singh. I'm the Director of Channel and Alliances Marketing at SimSpace. We're very excited today to host today's Threatcast Thursday webinar with one of our most illustrious partners, CyCognito. And today's topic will be CyCognito and SimSpace Better Together. And in this webinar, we're going to be talking about how together with CyCognito and SimSpace, we effectively empower companies to take control of their attack surface by identifying critical security risks and performing more effective red team versus blue team exercises. With CyCognito's attacker perspective and SimSpace's hyper-realistic simulations, red, blue, and purple teams can develop the skills needed to go up against today's most advanced cyber threats. So before we begin, though, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Let's first start with Josh Hogel, who is from CyCognito. Josh, you want to give us an introduction about yourself?
Sure. Hey, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm greeting you from sunny Florida today, and it actually is sunny and actually fairly decent weather here. I have been at CyCognito for about 6 months. I'm Director of Technology Alliances. So basically, I handle all of our relationships with our tech partners like SimSpace and others. My background kind of spans the gamut. I actually started my career many years ago while I was in college at Purdue University. I worked for the university doing IT support, desktop support, programming, all kinds of stuff. My background is actually comp sci. I worked for Rutgers for another 4 years after that, doing basically desktop engineering for the entire university. I then moved on to TD Ameritrade, so I was a security analyst there for several years and kind of really started to get into information security at that point in my career. Made the switch to the dark side of sales. I worked for Trend Micro and Imperva as a sales engineer and manager for about the last 10, 15 years and joined CyCognito here, like I said, within the last 6 months. Excited to be here. We've got a great product. I'm excited to talk to you guys about it and our partnership with SimSpace and kind of what we're doing in the space.
Thank you so much, Josh. Really appreciate that. Jordan, let's give you the mic.
Yeah, thanks, Sunny. So my name is Jordan Wigley. I'm the Director of Technology Alliances and Business Development at SimSpace. So I came into the cybersecurity vendor universe just a little different path than a lot of folks have. So I've been in the cybersecurity industry for about 18 years now, and just had a whole early childhood full of geeking out on computers and security-related topics. Actually got my start in cybersecurity right out of college. I interned while I was at the University of Alabama with Walmart's cybersecurity team here in Bentonville, Arkansas, where I still reside today. Came back, got a full-time offer there. And stayed with the company for about 12 years in their cybersecurity team, doing a lot of different technical and leadership roles across different security teams there. So I actually started out doing kind of building, coding and developing tools for their cybersecurity teams to use, and realized really quickly I didn't just want to write code all day long for a whole career. So quickly pivoted over into more of the security infrastructure side, working with their proxy servers, email, gateways, that kind of stuff. And did that for a few years and went on into a leadership role, just, early 20s, really probably not even ready for leadership yet at that time. And took on a ton of responsibilities really quickly, and ultimately had responsibility for their endpoint security, network security, internet security, and data security teams. And just kind of led that globally for several years over there, and then had the opportunity to kind of go back to my technical roots the last couple of years, and then got into threat hunting and incident response as a senior technical expert on their team. Moving on just a little further, went over to Wells Fargo to lead their threat hunt and incident response team. And that was actually my first interaction with SimSpace back in 2015. So our CISO and head of security operations at the time, had just seen SimSpace do a Department of Defense event for the U.S. Cyber Command called CyberFlag, and just were really impressed by it. It was a live fire red versus blue event, and they'd never really seen anything like that, and came back and said, how do we make this happen at the bank? So I spent the next, several months working with SimSpace and the leadership team over here when it was just, probably a dozen or two people at the company back then, just getting off the ground, and got to work with them from the very early days, just building out that use case on the commercial side, and kind of, getting it to where it needed to be for a large global bank, in addition to all the day-to-day responsibilities of, responding to threats and, different events that we had going on globally at the bank. So did that for 5 years, working with SimSpace as a customer. And then also, guess I moved over here about 2 years ago now. Bounced around a couple of different roles, but now I'm leading the, like I said, the alliances team. So really just focused on expanding our ecosystem of technology alliance partners and other strategic partnerships. It's just been a real exciting time to be on the team.
Thank you, Jordan. Much appreciated. Why don't we do this? Let's pivot back to Josh. Josh, I'm sure the audience would love to hear more about what CyCognito does, about its inception. If you could give us a little bit of a background on what you guys do, and that would be awesome.
Sure. So CyCognito is an external attack surface management company. It's a hot new space. It's been around for a couple of years now, but you'll start to hear, if you go to any of the events, I was just at Black Hat back in August. Every vendor is kind of getting into the attack surface management space, but essentially what we do that makes us different than the vast majority of companies out there in the attack surface management, Gartner's calling it external risk management. It involves a lot of different things, right? So CyCognito first is about helping customers discover, okay, where's my external risk? Where am I going to get attacked first? So we take a purely attacker's perspective on the world and on your company. So when a new customer or prospect comes to CyCognito and says, hey, what can you guys do for me? Right? What do you need from me to get started? We start with a company name. The company was actually started by Rob Gurzeev and Dima Potenkin, who were part of the 8200 unit in the Israeli army, which is a lot of Israeli startups and cybersecurity startups. The folks will come through that particular unit. Rob has a unique history in the fact that he was actually in charge of the unit who was going after guys like Al Qaeda and Bin Laden. So they basically are taking the same sort of approach as they were, going after those guys, and how we see attackers actually acting against companies publicly these days, right? You don't really have any knowledge necessarily on a company's specific IP addresses, domains, and stuff. So how do we go about doing that? And really the first way that we start to look at that, solving that problem, is first by understanding the organization. You really can't go and try and help an organization discover like where they are most exposed without understanding what does the organization look like to begin with, because I need to know where to look. So if you take for example, let's pick on a large hotel chain, take your pick, right? And you think about how hotels over the year, large hotel chains, they will go through a lot of mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, things like that. Hotel chains may merge with each other, right? Hotel chains acquire small mom and pop independent hotels in foreign countries, right? We want to understand all of that because it is that one server sitting in a small hotel chain in Italy that's running RDP that's not been patched. They're going to bring it onto their network, and soon enough, it's going to be compromised, right? And an attacker is going to get inside. So in order for you to be able to discover all of that information, you really have to understand what does that org look like. So we start by crawling a bunch of different sources and mapping out the organization before we do anything, right? We want to know that, hey, we acquired this company in 1995 via, a merger, right? And we've discovered that particular bit of information either through a press release, it could be through Wikipedia. There's a dozen or so sources that we will actually go back and dig through to try and understand that. We present that in a hierarchical view within our user interface, so you can easily see how the org is mapped out. There's a good story where we were actually talking with an existing customer who knew that they were going through a merger or acquisition of another smaller company. And he was sitting with our customer success team. They were looking at the dashboard, and he saw this new company show up, and he's like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I didn't even know that merger had completed yet, but you guys are already showing me, because we had discovered it through a press release and through subsequent documentation that we had found on the web about it as well. So pretty cool little story there. So once we actually discover and map that organization, now we can actually start going and looking for the assets themselves. Now we know about all these little subsidiaries that customers don't know about. And a lot of times we'll see disparities when we're talking to a customer who may have an existing solution. It could be a legacy solution. It could be a fairly modern solution as well, where they say, hey, you know what, we found 300,000-400,000 assets externally, and we come back and we actually find 50% more. We'll find like 600,000 or 700,000. These are real numbers that we're seeing from our customers. So we look for basically 5 main things. We look for IPs, IP ranges, web apps, certificates, and domains. And we will map those to all your organizations, your organization and the various subsidiaries. So the other part that's really important when you're talking about this, and you're talking to small security teams and people that have to work together on these global companies, is when I do find an asset, I want to be sure that it's actually mine. I don't want to have to go and chase ghosts and waste time, or waste my IT guy's time saying, hey, this server over here has got a problem, and only to find out it's not really ours, it's some other company's or whatever. So we provide that attribution inside of our UI and show you exactly, hey, this IP address is yours. It belongs to this hotel chain, which is part of this subsidiary, which is part of your master company, kind of thing. So we want to be able to show you all of those mappings. Once we've got all the assets discovered, then we take another step and we actually do active security testing. So we do a number of different types of tests. We do more than just a banner grab and say, hey, what, we see port 993 is opening. You're running an old version of IMAP, ergo, you have 30 or 40 vulnerabilities, which may not be applicable. You may have compensating controls in place that are already taking care of some of the vulnerabilities, right? So again, we don't want to send you on a wild goose chase. We do it in such a way that we're not detectable, and we don't cause any harm. So obviously we don't want to start setting off alarm bells in the SOC and have customers calling us and saying, hey, what are you guys doing? You just generated 10,000 alerts now that my security guys are freaking out about. And certainly we don't want to cause any downtime. So those are the 2 things that we have perfected over the years by building out our global network. We do it low and slow and do no harm as we're doing these tests and stuff. And it also gives you a lot more thorough understanding of kind of what's going on. And hey, this is a real problem. We will actually provide in a lot of cases Metasploit code that can show you this is how you can prove that this is an actual vulnerability. So when security turns that problem over to IT operations, they actually know it's a real problem. It's not going to be something they're going to be chasing their tail and wasting time with, right? Teams are small. Everybody's getting asked to do more with less, and we want to understand that. So having said all of that, we then basically give you a security score. So there's a 0 to 100 rating. There's also A, B, C, D, F rating, because essentially what we want to do with all this information is make it a lot easier for you as a customer to understand where your most critical risk is externally, to go focus on that. When you think about, I talk about a hotel chain that's got 20 or 30,000 vulnerabilities across its entire organization. You've got a team of 5 or 6 people, maybe 10 if you're lucky, right, to go fight all of these fires. Where do I focus my efforts? What's going to be the most critical that I need to look at, right? So that's why we give a security score, and we say, okay, out of those 20,000, here are your top 50 or 100 or 200. These are your F grades, right? Look at a bunch of different ways on how we score this based on how easy was it to find, how attractive do we think it is based on the types of data that we think might be hiding behind there, as well as how many vulnerabilities and what types of vulnerabilities we're seeing for that particular asset. So we give that the grade and we say, okay, here's your Fs. Here's what you really need to go focus on and fix, because these are your weakest links. This is where you're going to lose the most, potentially the most money and cause the biggest impact to your organization. So it's all about reducing that mean time to remediation. What can I focus on? What can I go fix and really improve my security posture the most, as opposed to, like I said, necessarily focusing on your crown jewels, which everybody usually has a lot of good security around. It's going to be that one you don't know about that's sitting off on a server someplace that somebody spun up in Google Cloud or AWS, or it was an acquisition, and that's how an attacker is going to get in and cause pain.
Thank you for that, Josh. That was very well. It's always interesting because every time I hear what CyCognito does, there's always a new nugget of wisdom that I hadn't picked up on before. So it's always informative to get that refresher. So thank you so much for that. Jordan, conversely, would love to hit your sense of SimSpace. Why don't you go ahead and give us a sense of what's happening in the SimSpace world and some background on what we do?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, just wanted to say for Josh, I completely relate coming from large, Fortune 500 companies, even as big as Fortune 1 at one point in my career. I wish I'd had a tool like this back then when I was leading the, security infrastructure and incident response teams and stuff at that scale. Like, you're constantly finding, new systems, new networks that you just honestly never even knew came to you via acquisition, until sometimes it's, too late and somebody's already either got an incident going on or, got at least have somebody knocking at the door generating actual, SOC alerts. So, definitely cool stuff you guys are doing. It's been great to work with you. So SimSpace. So yeah, we've, we, like I said earlier, we were founded back in 2015, right about the time I was first starting to reach out and work with SimSpace as a customer. Our co-founders came together, Hutch Hutchison and Lee Rossi, out of US Cyber Command and MIT Lincoln Lab. And, basically they put together, what was initially just a cyber range platform, but now we've really scaled it up to what we refer to as a cyber risk management platform that's powered by our cyber range. So our ranges are really the core of what we do, and everything else is bolted on top of it. So the ranges really allow our users to more efficiently build scaled down replicas of their production environments, or even just portions of their production environments, depending on the use case. And they can use them for a variety of use cases. So we've got people, like I said earlier, doing live fire adversarial exercises, red versus blue type stuff, mission rehearsal, purple teaming exercises. We've got teams in there doing detection engineering, making sure that, they're able to pull in their production alerts and dashboards and configurations and, start throwing live attacks against those and, see, are there rules alerting and detecting what they expect them to? And if not, they can do detection engineering and start tweaking and tuning those in an iterative process, and, really building out those capabilities against those live attacks, and, be assured once they go implement those in production that they're going to work the way they expect them to work. We've got people doing things like digital forensics and malware reversing labs, companies that are doing product evaluations or proof of concepts of different products they're looking at. We've even got some security vendors that are using our environment for demos and POCs during their sales processes, configuration testing and tuning, and just, lots of other use cases where, kind of a consequence-free destructive environment would be useful. So we really focus on making our ranges hyper realistic, making sure customers are able to deploy any tool that they want to. So we don't limit you just to the tools that we may have open source tools or relationships and partnerships with certain vendors, but we don't want to limit you to just those solutions. Our platform is very open so that you can pull in your own tools, bring your own licenses on board, and make it very easy just to build out whatever you need to for a particular environment or use case. If something's not easily virtualizable, think like mainframes, OT and ICS systems, things of that nature. If it's not virtualizable, then we also support hardware in the loop capabilities so that you can, as long as there's a network connection in some way, then we can get that mapped into a cyber range and make that part of your range environment. We also offer some pre-configured generic ranges. So if you don't want to put in a lot of effort right out of the box, you can go and just deploy one of these generic ranges that looks like a business network, may look like a financial or retail network, or even a virtual city with some ICS, SCADA equipment, and that kind of stuff in it. One of our most popular features that I always enjoyed as a customer was our user emulation technology that can be enabled on host within the range. So these are essentially bots that are acting as living, breathing users within all of the hosts on the network. So each emulated user is assigned to a configurable persona, and it's performing a variety of tasks throughout kind of this fictional workday that the users have. So the users are doing lots of administrative type tasks. They're creating office documents. They're saving files off to file servers. They're printing documents. They're browsing the websites, clicking links, downloading files, interacting with social media websites, sending and receiving emails, downloading attachments and opening attachments, clicking links and emails, doing all the normal things that a real user would do. And all this is happening very automated and also very randomized, so that it's not just the same patterns over and over. It creates a good haystack of legitimate traffic for defenders to go and hunt through, and also to test your tools against. And then also can be mixed in with malicious traffic as part of those activities as well, to the point where it's even very realistic that if an emulated user is the source of, say, a phishing attack, and that user clicks a link in a phishing email that downloads an executable and launches that, you'll actually see all of that happen from like Outlook.exe under that user's profile. And from a forensic standpoint, it looks very realistic to what you would see in a real world investigation. So it creates, just like I said, a good mix of legitimate and malicious traffic, depending on the use case. And everything's happening completely within our cyber range environment. So we've got a simulated internet space that's a lot of scraped websites that are hosted within our platform itself. So all this user emulation is interacting with a simulated internet rather than the real internet. So you don't have to worry about stuff getting outside of the environment. So you can be as destructive as you want within these ranges. We do have real internet proxy capabilities as well. So if you've got certain SaaS-based tools like EDRs, XDRs, some of the newer cloud-based SIMs, that kind of stuff, you can definitely have those talking out specifically through our real internet proxy to those SaaS-based solutions. We also offer access to the SimSpace attack platform. So this is basically a catalog of fully automated attack scenarios can be launched against a cyber range. These attacks require no red team experience. You just simply select the attacks you want to run, launch them, and watch them go. It even builds out a nice little network impact map showing, kind of the arrows as the attacks launch off, target a user workstation, pivoting laterally from that workstation to maybe a file server or something, and you can watch the attack visually unfold right before your eyes to know what's happening within the range. All these attacks are based on real-world TTPs and IOCs. So we try to make them as realistic as possible. The combination of user emulation, simulated internet, and the automated attack platform I talked about just makes for a really realistic network environment to train and test your people, processes, and systems. The cyber ranges, like I said, are very consequence-free, so you can be as destructive as you want, launch real malware, really just make it your playground. I think when you're not utilizing the range itself, one of the things that you can do are subscriptions also give you access to the SkillWise training catalog. So this is a curated catalog of content we've developed, as well as some partner content coming down the road as well, to where we've got right now, I think it's a little over 500 hours of self-guided hands-on training content. All these training modules are powered by our cyber range platform. So it spins up a little mini range in the background that you're interacting with as part of those training experiences. So I know I just threw a lot of information at everybody. So feel free along the way today. If you've got any questions, drop them in here into Bright Talk, and we'll answer them a little later in the webcast.
I appreciate that, Jordan and Josh. That was extremely informative. I think one thing that would be great to know, and we'll start with Josh in a second, is, unless you're living under a rock, there's no shortage of news that we're inundated with about what's happening in the industry, with all these threat actors, all the different breaches that are occurring in the commercial sector, the government sector, foreign military areas. There's just no shortage of what's happening out there, especially with the proliferation of what's happening with Russia and obviously China. One of the things I think the audience would love to hear about, and again, we'll start with Josh, is if you could tell us a little bit more from your perspective, what are some of the industry trends and business needs that are serving as a catalyst for these types of solutions from CyCognito? And then I'll turn it over to Jordan to provide a similar background.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a good, you make a good point. You bring up a lot of good catalysts, I would guess, in today's world on kind of what's driving business for us. 2 years ago, like I said, I've been with the company about 6 months. 2 years ago, CyCognito actually had a hard time of coming out and trying to explain, okay, what is this external attack surface space really about? What does it mean? Why is it important to me? But today it's pretty obvious. Like I said, I was at Black Hat a couple weeks ago, and virtually every vendor that I spoke to at a booth had something to say about attack surface management capabilities and things like that. And to your point, I think a lot of it is being driven. Obviously, we've got nation state attackers. The breaches are not getting any smaller, right? I can even remember back when I was a wee security analyst at TD Ameritrade many years ago. The threats that we faced daily. I mean, I would see 10, 15, 20,000 alerts a day in our console, right? So when you and it's only gotten worse. We see more 0 days. Software is changing so much faster these days. You've got cloud, all this new technology that has come out within the last several years, and the acceleration to cloud and things like that. Digital transformation, as I use some buzzwords here, right? All this is contributing to companies not being able to understand, well, what is actually going on in my environment? You talk about shrinking security budgets, people doing more with less, all that stuff. Nobody, in my experience, when I was on the other side of the planet here, nobody wanted to spend a lot of money on security because it wasn't generating revenue for the company, right? It's a cost center. And so as the attacks get worse and worse, you've really got to do more, like I said, more with less. So from our perspective, as companies are expanding globally and all these mergers, acquisitions, this is where it becomes super important for us to come in and be able to say, hey, we will tell you, we're going to go out and find where all your external assets are, and we're the best at it, right? And I'm pretty confident in saying that we're the best at it, because Gartner is saying that we're the best at it, and our customers are saying that as well. We're finding a lot more. So CyCognito, I mean, like I said, the whole premise of the company was born out of Rob's idea on, okay, hey, we're going after these malicious guys as we're kind of being the attacker and trying to infiltrate their organization. It starts you to think about, okay, how can I use this from an attacker's point of view, right? To automate all of this and do this at scale for the largest companies in the world, to try and help them understand what's going on. And, look, shameless plug for our Log4j webinar that's coming up in a couple of weeks, but we are still talking about Log4j, and it's almost a year later, and people can't get rid of it because people can't find it all. We're all the little spots. There's always, you go and you patch it really quickly, and guess what, guys? You just introduced 5 more bugs in the patch. So now I got to go back and repatch and find out where all this stuff is being effective. And, security guys, God love them, they don't get any sleep because they're constantly battling these problems. So from our perspective, helping you to try and find where the biggest problems are and narrowing those down and say, hey, you know what? I've at least got my big ones taken care of, and maybe I can get an hour of sleep tonight and relax for tomorrow and do it all over again. That's kind of where I think we're coming from.
That's a great perspective. Thank you for that. Jordan, what about you from your sense of the industry trends and, again, business drivers that are basically being the impetus for growth for SimSpace? What's your thoughts around that? What context can you provide for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of building on what Josh said a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of different angles to take on this, but the most obvious ones are just looking at, I hate to overuse industry terms, but people, processes, and technology, right? And I mean, that's really what we're in the market to just help companies understand their risks in those areas, as well as to, just improve and reduce their overall risk surface as a whole. And, partnering with companies like CyCognito that give visibility into that for customers, then empowering them to come into a range environment and take it to the next level in a, like I keep saying, consequence-free environment, but that's really what it is. It's giving you that playground that you can go and try out things that maybe you wouldn't be comfortable trying out in your production network, especially on some of these systems that you just don't know a lot about to begin with. So, just from an industry trend standpoint, I mean, we keep hearing about the cybersecurity skills gap shortage and all that kind of stuff. And, that's really where we're focused on, building up the people and building up that next generation of cyber defenders as well, which starts spilling over into the infrastructure side too, because, security is not just about the people working in the cybersecurity positions. It's about everybody throughout the whole company that, is administering these systems, administering the networks, architecting, you name it, it all ties back to the overall risk landscape for an organization. So, if we're helping companies to reduce that human error, whether or not that's, just maybe a skills gap from a cybersecurity analyst or something like that, and we're, giving them real life experience in a consequence-free environment to be able to, go and, understand how they actually respond during a ransomware attack, or, to Josh's point, during an attack that's leveraging Log4j vulnerabilities and that kind of stuff. It's seeing and testing their playbooks and their people and helping them to identify in a simulated environment what their gaps really are, so that they can address those and refine them before there's a real world attack against their company leveraging those things that would potentially highlight the gaps at just the wrong time.
Thank you for that. So I that was very informative. I think one of the things that I know a lot of, obviously the big crux of this particular webcast is focusing on is, let's start with Josh. Can you give us a sense of what specific verticals, probably starting with financial, that's obviously the most important part of what we're talking about today, but would love to get your sense of what are the specific target markets that CyCognito focuses on specifically. And I know you touched on it, but maybe we could start more with the aspects of the financial FinServ market.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, CyCognito really will work with any customer, of course, but we are focused on I would say Fortune 50, Fortune 100. We deal with like the largest corporations around the world, whether it's, in FinServ or hospitality or oil and gas. I mean, we really span the gamut on the types of customers, or I would say the verticals that we are in. We've got a lot of big financials who are our customers. We've got a lot of big financials who are also prospects as well. Even GSIs, and one interesting is also cyber insurance, right? Mm-hmm. And even investment firms, right? So there's a whole slew of use cases that we have that's not just necessarily focused on, all right, hey, I'm a company, go find all my external attack surface. We're starting to look at things like third-party risk services and things like that. So when you think about the cyber insurance industry, and those folks who are, somebody says, hey, you know what, give me cyber insurance. And okay, well, we've done some kind of tests, right? And we've looked at your documentation. We've seen what your procedures are, right? to be able to gauge how big of a risk that is just by either taking their word for it or not really kind of understanding the company's true security posture. Or if I'm a bank that's going to go acquire a smaller community bank or whatever the case may be, right? I want to know what that security posture looks like, because that may affect my deal and how much I'm going to pay for them or how much it's going to cost me to insure them, things like that as well, right? So we are starting to see those use cases come up more and more as we get further into the industry, right? So it's becoming a more commonplace, I would say, customer that we're running into. And again, like I said, we're dealing with global systems integrators too. They're looking at it from the same types of perspectives. Managed service providers, security service providers as well, making this part of an offering. And you can see from the industry, kind of, like I said, where we're going. And we want those big companies that have those really complicated histories. You think about a company like JP Morgan, which has been around for hundreds of years, right? And all the stuff that's gone on, all the companies and all the banks and stuff, right? That's gold for us, because it's really hard to be able to go and map out those organizations and figure out like what do they really own and what is really theirs, and do it accurately and at scale. And those are really big differentiators with what we do and the way that we do it.
Thank you for that, Josh. Very helpful. And I think that actually sets up good context for Jordan. So Jordan, obviously, we have a very strong pedigree with U.S. Cyber Command, obviously the defense, the government sector. But I also know, too, that we are putting a lot of emphasis on the financial sector as well, including some of the largest U.S. banks. Can you give us more context on what we're doing in the financial sector, as well as any other key verticals or industries that you think would make sense to delve into?
Yeah, absolutely. So, on the Department of Defense side, I mean, the SimSpace platform powers the U.S. Department of Defense. They call it their Persistent Cyber Training Environment, PCTE. So this is, what a lot of military organizations in the U.S. utilize for training, rehearsal, mission readiness from a cyber perspective. And, they've got our software essentially deployed in an on-prem deployment for that environment. So we're, the primary platform that's powering that. And, just to show the scale of it, I mean, that's over 25,000 virtual machines that are running or can run in that environment. And outside the DoD, we've got a heavy focus in the financial services industry. Like I said, financial services were our first commercial customers. We've currently got multiple financial institutions, banks, insurance companies that we work with both in the U.S. and beyond. And that includes 4 of the top 5 banks in the U.S. and one of the U.S.'s largest insurance companies as well. For those customers, I would say, the ranges themselves are widely used for a lot of the use cases we talked about, for training engagements, for just testing different, configurations, doing detection engineering, malware analysis, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, they're using them for a lot of stuff, but the thing that keeps those financial services customers coming back year after year is really our professional services engagements. That's what we call it, our live fire assessment exercises. So these are our red team versus blue team events led by our professional services org. And, that's basically putting these companies through anywhere from an 8 to 24 hour around the clock event where they're bringing in their cyber defense team. So they're bringing in their SOC analysts, they're bringing in incident responders, threat hunters, many times even people from other security infrastructure teams supporting firewalls, Active Directory, that kind of stuff. And, letting them practice their playbooks against, a multitude of attacks happening throughout the engagement that are essentially your worst day in the office. So, I mean, you've got multiple different tiers of threat actor groups from low up to, highly sophisticated nation state level attacks going on during these events all around the same time. So, there's a lot of stuff to look at, but it's all mixed in with that emulated traffic I mentioned. So there's a giant haystack that you have to sift through to find this stuff. And then it's really beyond that about assessing, these financial services companies, people and their playbook so that they can identify skills that they can go assign, training content in our library out to the individuals to upskill in certain areas that they may have some weaknesses in. But then above and beyond that, really identifying, playbooks and procedures that may be lacking in a particular area. Like oftentimes in the 24-hour engagements, we end up seeing where companies may not have good shift turnover processes. So if they've got a long-running, highly sophisticated threat that spans across multiple SOC shifts, how does shift 1 do their turnover to shift 2 and shift 2 to shift 3, and so on? And identifying the way the different teams handle that sometimes is going to implicate that there's issues with rework, or maybe certain information didn't make it from shift 1 to shift 2. So maybe you didn't block something as soon as you could have to cut off a threat earlier, that kind of stuff. And outside of just financial services, we do work with a variety of other industries, including retail, technology companies, and even foreign and domestic government institutions.
Thank you. I think that's very informative. And I think what's really cool about that too is you can see where there's so much synergy and complementary aspects of what we do with CyCognito. And that actually allows me to delve into the next question. Jordan, since I got you on the line, let's start with you. I think what would be good is, now that we have a clear picture of what SimSpace and CyCognito do, which critical cybersecurity issues they tackle, I think one of the things I'm sure the audience would love to hear more about is if you could help us better understand how the two solutions between SimSpace and CyCognito ultimately come together, and what are our future plans around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kick it off, and Josh, feel free to jump in anytime as well. But basically, ever since I first saw CyCognito, I was excited about a potential partnership, just because of the similarities in our customer base, and also just the mission that our companies have is very similar. So the fact that CyCognito customers are able to quickly and easily identify vulnerable systems, or at least risks that they never knew about on their network. And sometimes, like I said, even networks that you didn't know existed that came in via a merger or acquisition, that your company is still financially and legally responsible for. It's very important that you've got those things locked down as quickly as possible once you identify those risks. And I'm sure Josh can probably attest. There's I know in my background in Fortune 500, there were times that we would learn about a new network. Maybe it was on a completely separate Active Directory for us or something like that. We had no access into it other than maybe a VPN connection that they gave us once we learned about the network. And, it was really difficult to get leadership buy-in to go make changes to something quickly in these new environments that we had just learned about. So, if we identified a vulnerable system in a network, it would be a lot of days or weeks in some cases to figure out exactly what other controls may be mitigating those risks, and, trying to figure out, is it worth going and making production changes on a system that we just don't know that much about. Where I see SimSpace coming in, when systems are identified with CyCognito, an organization that's also a SimSpace customer could then, spin up a small replica of that environment, pull in the same types of servers, firewalls, routers, whatever the case may be, into a SimSpace range, along with an image of that vulnerable server. Or, if you've got, all the information needed, just build one up from scratch with the same patch levels and that kind of stuff. And do all of your testing against it. So if somebody's telling leadership that, oh, it's not important that we go patch that server that was identified because our IPS is able to, protect against that particular attack, great. Let's go, fire up that same virtual IPS in a range and launch those attacks against it and see, what the results are. Did it actually, did your control stop the attack the way you thought it did or not? And like Josh said, CyCognito is often, even providing the Metasploit, instructions to go and fire that stuff off to test and validate. I'm sure there's customers that may not feel comfortable doing that against production systems. And again, that's where, if you can build up that replica in SimSpace, then it gives you an environment that you can test against more comfortably. Get the patches, get the configuration changes, get the controls working the way that you think they should, and then go deploy those to production with a lot more confidence, especially if it's a legacy system or a system you're just not that familiar with. Now, Josh, I'll turn it over to you, see if you've got any other thoughts or comments on that.
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much nailed it for the most part. I mean, from my perspective, even thinking back when I was like I said, a wee security analyst, right? Something happens. All right, we discover, or let's just say, pick on Log4j, right? You have a new 0 day. The first thing your manager is going to come down and do is say, okay, tell me every place that we have Log4j. I need to find out where this vulnerability is. And what CyCognito can do is we can easily tell you, okay, here's all your external facing assets that have Log4j, a Log4j vulnerability, right? So the next step is going to be, all right, we need to get all that stuff patched. And as management is breathing down over your neck to get all this stuff done right away, it's very, very easy to, just go out into production and say, all right, we're just going to deploy this patch and pray to God that it works, right? And as we've seen, especially, and I'm going to keep picking on Log4j, there were multiple patches released over time and multiple within a matter of weeks. So first of all, trying to get that through a normal change management process, good luck, right? I mean, it's just they're coming too fast and too furious. And then they're also introducing new security vulnerabilities along the way. And then to your point, God knows like what it's going to affect when I actually do this patch. Is it going to break this application, which just happens to be, oh, by the way, our most important revenue generating application that we own? So you're in the middle of this firestorm and this fire drill, right? On trying to figure out, all right, CyCognito has identified this. How can I now go and test this in a more controlled fashion before I roll it out into production and make sure that I'm not going to take anything down and compound the problem, make it 100 times worse than it already is, right? So I think that's a good place where SimSpace can come in and, like to your point, fire up the virtual range, go and test it, simulate what do we have in production, what is this going to affect, is it going to break anything, does it look good? Good, let's go roll it out, and maybe we can actually accelerate the change management process because, hey, we've already tested this. We know how it's going to behave when we roll it out in production, and we're going to be good and golden. So I think it's a really important tool and how you actually, it also ties back to our mean time to remediation story, right? So it's not just about us discovering it, it's about actually going and fixing it. And how do we complete that cycle in the most efficient way possible? And if you're going back and having to either break things or, you're taking down production networks, that doesn't reduce the remediation time, right? Because now you've actually added and extended onto it. So that's kind of where I see the two companies synergizing between the platforms and stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank you guys, first of all, because you guys are clearly seasoned presenters, because we are totally on track with time. And I think that now while you guys were chatting, I was able to go through some of the Q&A that were popping up and kind of delineate between ones for SimSpace and CyCognito. So let's move with some good Q&A questions. There's some really good ones that the audience has proposed. And what I'll do is I'll correlate between SimSpace and CyCognito. So the first one, let's start with you, Jordan. And this is a question for SimSpace. The question is, what cybersecurity tools and solutions do our cyber ranges support?
So it's kind of a loaded question. I kind of mentioned it during my company overview a little bit, but we support virtually anything out there. I mean, we make our ranges very open in concept so that you can pull in new VM templates, new VM images, virtual appliances, whatever it takes to get a tool into a range. We can poke holes in the real internet proxy to allow SaaS-based tools to talk out. We can do some hybrid implementations with some native cloud stuff if needed. So we've got a lot of flexibility in installation configuration, and ultimately even the hardware and the loop capabilities I mentioned. So if something is just not able to be virtualized, then we can pull it in via a network connection and have it physically racked either in our data center, your own data center if it's an on-prem deployment, or even some type of point-to-point VPN connectivity if it's a lab environment that it's hosted in, or whatever the case may be. So we can support a lot of different tools and solutions. But we do have, a lot of open source templates that are out there out of the box for things like Security Onion. We've got partnerships and different licensing capabilities with various companies, including just trying to think of some off the top of my head, like NetWitness, Fortinet, Symantec, and others, and continuing to evolve on those relationships as we grow as a company. Two, to make those tools more readily and easily available, even from a licensing standpoint within our range. And for others, we at least go ahead and semi-automate the stuff. So if you're having to bring your own license for a particular tool, we can go ahead in many cases and have the VM templates and stuff available and ready to go. So all you've got to do is plug your license in and you're off to the races.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jordan. That was very helpful. Let's do this next question. Josh, let's turn it over to you. So the question for you is, how is CyCognito different from traditional vulnerability scanners like Qualys, Rapid7, Tenable, etc., as well as security rating services like Scorecard?
Sure. It's a very, very good question. We get that question a lot in the field. So it goes back to my company introduction too, right? So we start by mapping the organization, right? So that is first and foremost, I think, one of the most fundamentally different things that we do and where we start. So I've heard from customers at Black Hat, from our existing customers. Matter of fact, I'm just getting Slack messages in our customer feedback channel here about customers who actually own multiple of those tools. And we're not saying, hey, you know what, you don't need those anymore. Go and get rid of those traditional tools, right? We work together to actually do different things and look at things a different way. So it's not like you have to go and throw out your existing investment in those tools just and say, hey, we're only going to focus on CyCognitos. But it is about that organizational context. It is about that attribution of those assets back to who do they belong to? And is this really ours? Is this issue a real issue? Because those are the things that we really have to help IT and security ops folks understand in order to A, reduce that mean time to remediation, and B, not waste their time chasing their tail. I've heard in multiple cases from other customers and prospects and stuff who would tell me, hey, yeah, vendor XYZ gives me a list of all this stuff and gives me a list of URLs and web apps and all this stuff that they say I own, but they don't tell me anything about it. They don't tell me who owns it. I've got 50,000 people in my company. Nobody's ever heard of this application. So now I have to go spend more time trying to figure out what part of the business this actually belongs to, if at all. Is it even relevant anymore? Is it alive anymore? So it's all of that context and attribution that we add around those different assets and those different issues that really helps customers understand, hey, this is a real thing. And I think the other thing that we do a lot differently too, because of that organizational mapping, is we're able to find a lot more. I've heard time and time again from customers, again, who have had multiple solutions and said, hey, you know what? You guys found a lot more than the other vendor did. And again, we've been with hotel chains who we found virtually 200,000 more assets than anyone else was able to discover. And when you start, that's a lot, but even 1,000 or 100, or even one, can be that one that you don't know about, that can be the one that the attackers find and eventually get in through and cause you havoc, and you end up on the front page. So those are a lot of the differences that we're seeing. The traditional scanners and stuff, they're still good. They're still worth an investment, and they do good internally. We're purely focused on external at this point. And we will partner with other companies to do the internal aspects as well. But this is why we're different. The organization, the attribution, the proof, and the discovery on what we can find that other folks can't.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. Here's another one. I think this one, I know, at least from my perspective, I see come up quite a bit. Jordan, this is for you. The question from the audience is, what makes SimSpace different from other cyber range platforms, or different than just building a lab in AWS or another cloud provider?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of people, for a simple use case, you could easily go slap a few VMs in, AWS or wherever else, and do some basic testing. But when you've got a repeatable use case that you need to do time and time again, whether it's training or stuff like we're talking about with CyCognito, being able to pull in different assets that you're discovering and learning about and building those out so that you can do testing against those repeatedly. Being able to do that in an environment like ours is key. From against just doing it on your own, on your own virtual infrastructure or on a native cloud provider. But when you look even at other cyber range providers, some of the stuff I talked about earlier is really what sets us apart. So most cyber range companies, and there's quite a few out there these days, focus on either being just a cyber range company and they're giving you that environment to go build tools out in. But even with those, a lot of times you're limited to the tools that they have, available configurations for within the range. Where again, like I said a minute ago, we want to be open to any tool or any system that you want to pull in there. Even with some obscure stuff and obscure operating systems, we want to make that available to you and allow you to do that stuff. And then when it comes to like the training side, a lot of companies focus just on that hands-on self-guided training, and we're really all about marrying the two together so that you can have these cyber range environments that you can use for all these different use cases, but also have those carry over into the training so that whether it's team-based training exercises, live fire red versus blue, or even the individual self-guided training, that everything is more realistic and using a lot of the same tools that you use in your production environment. It just doesn't make sense to me to go into an unfamiliar environment and do training, because you're going to come out getting some kind of generic information. I mean, you're going to gain some knowledge, you're going to learn some new techniques or tools or processes that you can apply across multiple things. And, you can eventually figure out, oh, okay, I learned in this training class how to use Security Onion, and that's great, but we use Splunk in production, and you can, get some conversions and use Sigma converters and stuff and figure out how to get a query from this working over here, but it's not always that easy. So, the more that you can customize your training experience to, utilizing the same tools that you're fighting with from your desk every day, the better the quality is going to be and the more applicable that is to your day job.
Thank you for that, Jordan. Very helpful. I've got a couple more questions. I know we're up against the clock, so I'm going to try to go through some of the more prolific questions that I felt popped up. This one is for Josh. It's more around interoperability and integration. The question from this audience member is that our security ops team uses Splunk as our SIEM and SOR platform, and our IT ops team uses ServiceNow to manage vulnerabilities using their vulnerability response module. Do you guys integrate with either of those?
Yeah, great question. So yes, actually the answer is yes to both. We've just announced, or we're going to announce officially our integration with both platforms. We just released the integration on the ServiceNow store, and the Splunk integration will soon be on Splunk Base on their store. And it's good, and it's important to understand why, because when you start talking to security teams, folks have their individual tools that they are proficient at, right? And you may have SOC operations who is used to working in Splunk, and then they go and they buy a tool like CyCognito, and they're like, great, you guys have a nice interface, but it's yet another tool that I have to kind of learn and understand the nuances of, and understand kind of how you guys present stuff, but I'm really used to Splunk. And there's a lot of stuff that I can do in Splunk. Additionally, with the data and queries and modeling and mapping and risk-based analytics and all this cool stuff, right? So both of these integrations essentially allow a customer to take all of the assets, all of the issues we discover on our platform and ingest them into Splunk or ServiceNow VR, map them using the existing tools that they are used to using, and take that data and then use it to whatever extent that they want to use it within those platforms. Because there's a lot of extensibility, as you can imagine, a lot of workflows that customers have already built around that. Splunk has its SOAR platform. ServiceNow has all of its workflow processes and stuff that folks have spent, a lot of dollars building as well. So we want them to be able to take advantage of that, so they can get all that data very easily out of our system using these two integrations. And we're always constantly integrating with additional folks. Obviously, we're talking to you guys as well. So yeah, those are two huge ones that we've just completed.
I appreciate that. Jordan, I think this is a pretty poignant question, and I know this is another one that comes up quite a bit that I've heard myself. The question for you is, how are customers leveraging the SimSpace platform when they don't have an active vulnerability or something else that needs testing?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, coming back to the skill-wise side of it, the training content catalog, that's the, I'd say the biggest thing that customers are leveraging during their downtime is taking some of those gaps they've identified for their people, especially, during the other engagements on the range, and going and assigning training out to those users, or using our built-in learning paths as well. Or just letting those users go and select content on their own for upskilling in a variety of cybersecurity topics. So again, we've got over 500 hours, and it's continuing to grow. We've got lots of training content that's being developed for the Department of Defense in the U.S. and some other international organizations as well that we've got all the intellectual property rights to, and those will continue to be commercialized when applicable to grow our commercial catalog as well. And again, just a variety of other use cases. Like I said, malware analysis, forensics labs, there's always something that you can use this type of environment for, where, you may just not have time to go through all the red tape to, get a new solution in a production environment. And as long as you're not using, production data, usually there's no issue at most major companies of spinning something up in an environment like ours, just to start testing or doing proof of concepts and that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Well, I know we're up against the time. I think we could, for those of you in the audience that want to continue to stay on, I'll continue to just flesh out maybe just two more questions. And of course, if there's any questions that you guys couldn't get to, feel free to send it to us, and we'll certainly get back to you with it. But let's do this one here, Josh. Does this platform from CyCognito have any type of workflow engine or integration so I can automate processes like opening tickets, notifying folks of issues in Slack, etc.?
Yeah, actually, we do that as well. So we have a pretty powerful workflow engine built into the platform called Workato. So Workato essentially allows us to integrate with literally hundreds of different types of applications, whether they're productivity or security or whatever. As we mentioned before, we built the custom integration with ServiceNow and Splunk. Workato basically gives us a lot more individual integration. So as we discover either a new asset or an issue, a customer can manually, quote unquote, kick off a workflow into Workato, and it can be virtually anything. Workato has a lot of different connections that different types of applications they can connect to. They have a lot of different, what they call recipes, which are just simple pre-baked, if this, then that kind of for loops and all kinds of stuff. And you can really drag and drop code into the platform and just do whatever you want. So it's a pretty powerful engine on the back end that really gives us a lot of flexibility and can integrate into virtually any type of platform that a customer or workflow that a customer may want to do.
Awesome. And let's keep the last question for you, Josh. I think Jordan might have gotten bumped off or something happened, or he may have had another meeting. So I think we're time for one last question for you. Does the platform from CyCognito support RBAC and limit which assets and issues various groups in my organization can see?
Yeah, yes to that, as well. As you can imagine, as we're going after, very large enterprises with very big teams in them, there's a lot of stuff that's, global and disparate teams. And, you want to be able to give certain people certain roles and only allow them to see stuff within their own organization. So yes, we fully support role-based access control. And we can limit like who can see what and what roles they have. So people can have admin roles. You can have an analyst role. You can have a read-only role if you only want to give people the ability to read things and see certain dashboards and things like that. So all that is baked into the platform as well.
Excellent. Jordan, good to see you back. It looks like I got your Slack. You had a technical glitch.
But, sorry about that.
All good. You didn't miss anything. Last question for you, and I think we're good. We can wrap it up. And I think this is a really good way to sort of end the really informative webcast that you guys delivered today. So Jordan, question for you. Does the cyber range only make sense for mature cybersecurity teams, or can smaller, less experienced teams also use a cyber range?
Gotcha. That's a very good question, and probably a year or two ago, I would have had a different answer to this. So I think when we first got our starts at SimSpace, and even back when I was first using SimSpace as a customer, I would say it was in that first group where it needed to be a really mature cybersecurity team because it is a complex environment. We make it as easy as possible to spin these things up, and it's getting easier every day that we add kind of these more pre-configured generic range networks that you can use right out of the box with no really training time or anything needed to get on that. But now as we've done that and we're making it simpler, and we're even working on some future integrations with companies like CyCognito so that it'll make it an even more automated process to build out those scaled down replicas. As we do all of this, it's getting easier and easier for less experienced teams to use this as well. So the skill-wise training catalog is great for anybody, even at small and medium-sized businesses that want to get their people more cybersecurity training. And then the cyber ranges themselves, where traditionally we saw these large financial institutions using hundreds or even thousands of virtual machines in their cyber range environments. People can find these use cases for even just 25, 50, 100 VMs in a cyber range and still get a lot of benefit out of having this type of environment available. So yeah, I'd say while it was traditionally a more mature team, that we've got a lot of people that are coming from less mature organizations that are still finding benefit these days.
Awesome. Well, I think we did a pretty good job addressing probably 90% of the questions that came my way. There's a couple more that popped up, but given the sake of time, we'll perhaps get back to that. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you again for your time. This was very informative. I can even tell just from my own perspective, I always learn more when you guys present. And Josh, you want to tell the audience about the, you said there's a Log4 webcast that you guys are doing coming up or something as well?
Yeah, thanks. They're shameless plug for our Log4j. Why it's still relevant? Why are we still talking about it a year later? Yeah. So our CISO is going to be on there, Anne-Marie Zottelmeyer, AMZ as she's affectionately known. Yeah. And we have a couple other folks on that as well. That is October 4th. So keep an eye on our socials. It's all posted out there. It's also should be on our website as well at CyCognito.com.
Thank you, Josh. And just a shameless plug for us on our side at SimSpace. As you guys have seen, this is one of many Threatcast Thursdays that we're going to continue to provide to our audiences. So again, just as Josh mentioned, keep track of our LinkedIn page, our social media pages, and we always keep the team, everybody apprised of what the latest and greatest is. So stay tuned for some more coming down the pike. And again, if you have any questions, let us know. We do have some really good collateral that articulates the solution we just talked about. So that's available for download. But again, thank you for everybody's time. And we look forward to chatting with all you guys again soon. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good one.
Take care.